bother to clean any of nuclear waste up? Why do we put so much effort into cleaning these materials up from the environment around us? It's confusing to me how no harm, nothing happens after, say, the Fukushima event. No harm, nothing happened. Divide by zero. 0 people have died according to some claims. That's all they are, is shallow, vapid claims. And then concerns about a haircut or, yeah, that's what you get. So this divide by zero causes a lot of angst and consternation. It's like sticking a word with zero value in an equation is tough. You have to go into particle physics and quantums and other things we're still trying to understand and comprehend in this world because we don't know everything. So this is a challenge. It's an in-our-face challenge that the nuclear industry, on the one hand, says it's safe, on the other hand, spends trillions in tax dollars.
Don't need someone to save me, no, and don't come running to blame me. From miles away I can tell that something's off. The way you look and how you pause when you talk, I think you said enough. You said your love for me something brand new. You said this is something you would never do. Here we are in your car, let me see who you are, who you really are, yeah. Don't need you here to say you're sorry, 'cause if you're gonna leave me then just do it. Don't take it slow, don't be gentle, no, I just gotta know. If you're gonna leave me then just do it.
Bother to clean any of nuclear waste up? Why do we put so much effort into cleaning these materials up from the environment around us? It's confusing to me how no harm, nothing happens after, say, the Fukushima event. No harm, nothing happened. Divide by zero. 0 people have died according to some claims. That's all they are, is shallow, vapid claims. And then concerns about a haircut or, yeah, that's what you get. So this divide by zero causes a lot of angst and consternation. It's like sticking a word with zero value in an equation is tough. You have to go into particle physics and quantums and other things we're still trying to understand and comprehend in this world because we don't know everything. So this is a challenge. It's in our face challenge that the nuclear industry, on the one hand, says it's safe, on the other hand, spends trillions in tax dollars.
Don't need someone to save me, no, and don't come running to blame me. From miles away I can tell that something's off. The way you look and how you pause when you talk, I think I said enough. You said your love for me something brand new. You said this is something you would never do. Here we are in your car, let me see who you are, who you really are, yeah. Don't need you here to say you're sorry, 'cause if you're gonna leave me, then just do it. Don't take it slow, don't be gentle, no, I just gotta know. If you're gonna leave me, then just do it.
Well, welcome, Rich. How are you? This is Boomer You with Environmental Options. And
Are we live?
yeah, I have to make sure that your audio is good. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I have a new microphone, but I still had to use the headset, so we might be a little challenged tonight as there are thunderstorms where I am. And Rich is 3,000 miles away, and I'm pulling in a signal from some mountain that there's something obstructing my home. So we're going to have a few challenges. I already got the notification that said the stream is is slowed down. So, but I see Jean and Rich, Diane is here, and CB. My sound is off. How could my sound be off? You mean my mic is too low? Okay, can you hear me now? Oh, brother.
I can hear you.
Yeah, but they can't. All right, just a second. I got a new one. See? New mic. All right, let's make it work. No audio. Okay, I'm shutting this off. I'm shutting this off. Okay. Now, how is it now? This is all new.
I can hear you well on Skype.
Okay, Rich is good, no Sandy. Let's wait because this is my brand new thingy here. And it worked the other night. Okay, now it sounds good? Well, I guess I can't wear the headphone. Skype says I have to go cancellation, so it's so let's just hope that that this works. I guess the headset didn't work. I hope everybody liked that video. Rich is really interesting. He has his channel that I learned from. Thank you everybody for helping me with my sound check, basically, because it's brand new and I have never been. I'm getting professional here, and real pro. So Richard, welcome and tell us about you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. I've been listening to your show for a while, off and on. Comment once in a while. So I like most of the topics. You have good friends, good group of people. So basically, I'm an ex-Marine. I was trained in the service on radar systems, and then I was trained in a field called metrology. And it's nothing to do with the weather. It's how you would measure the weather, among other things. So my electronics and technical background is just deep. The work I did was traceable to it was a Bureau of Standards at the time. Now it's the National Institutes of Technology, or Standards of Technology. So that was a foundation for a career. Wow. And from there, I had education all through it in just a variety of fields. I was invited to come play, and I did.
Good. That's cool. Yeah, you told me a little bit about yourself. I mean, you have a wide variety of background, which is why I think when I watch you and you teach, you're a teacher like everybody I find in these obscure little back rooms of YouTube. You have a voice, you have so much background that I needed you for this show. And basically, it's for the nuclear part, your nuclear activism, your knowledge. Tell us a little bit about how you sort of got into that, because there was one video I was watching of yours, and you had all of the debaters that are that don't like Dana Durnford and Brad, what's his name, Branch, Kevin Branch.
Kevin Blanche.
Blanche,
Yep.
these guys are, virulently out there anti-nuke, and
Yeah,
so they, go ahead.
I followed Kevin, and I still do. I like the man, and he has a huge heart, but he's just a bit too far out there for me. And then Dana is just so wrong on so many levels, I can't support him. I actually tried to work with him when he got a Geiger counter.
Oh my
I
God.
said, back the fuck up. You have no idea what this thing is and what it does. And nobody I talk to knows what those things are and what they do, which is, it's, I had the experience, the training, and so these things just kind of, it's like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, right.
This is how it works. This is what it means. And it is that tool alone people have heard about. The next step is a spectrometer. That I know the insides and the outsides of one of those. So it's just, I've had so much exposure to concepts in the real world, from the oil field, ultra high purity analytic equipment, chemical industry. I made a third of the world's plastic at one point in my
Damn.
career.
Didn't you feel guilty, or did you not know any better? Were you woke yet?
The world needs plastic. This plant was state of the art, and now it's 30 years dated. But if things are done right and better, then there's a reason for doing them. So even at that point, I was young. This wasn't really. It was
Oh,
a
it's a
half
long
decent
time
picture.
ago. In the beginning.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
What was it you told me
so
that I liked? There was.
but this plant made
Yeah.
plastic. The plant next to it that we kind of replaced and
Yeah.
shut down, when it leaked, the whole parking lot got free cleaning and all the employees got lung capacity tests.
Oh, jeez.
That's the type of environment that you're in. The plastic coats the cars and it coats your lungs. So you get some lessons there and you learn and you make sure things are done right. I had no problem going to anybody and saying, there's a leak out in one of our fields, your tank is overflowing.
Oh my God.
So,
that's hairy.
but
Well, you also had. Wait, what was it that you told me? Oh my God, I thought it was funny as hell. Now I just had it on my head. Now it's just gone. Just gone. Well, is
so,
there anything
so
you want to?
that was only 3 years. The next thing from that was, this was the big one. This is the nuclear tie-in here. Although there's another.
Bingo.
So I was invited to come write the control software for the Savannah River site's Defense Waste Processing Facility. I was given the title of Senior Chemical Engineer, writing interlocks for one of the black boxes in what is called a canyon of systems.
Right.
So I had one tiny little siloed area. It was the frit bin conveyor system. One small, very black box. This is how the engineering works. This is lead scientist. What that frit bin was feeding was glass pellets into a bin. But what the glass pellets were made of is still a secret. It's a secret
Really?
that went from that site to the Savannah or the Hanford site for their glass vitrification plant. It's ceramic and glass chemistry that very few labs on this planet can even begin to do. So you get introduced to these things through these opportunities. So that contract got defunded. I was asked to come work for DuPont down at the site in Georgia, and I decided to go work for the auto industry and left. But that was an invitation to an interview. I don't know if I would have gotten, but I wasn't interested. Yet it was more money than you can shake many sticks at. So I didn't want to take my family there. I knew the SRS site. I had some background. So there was the big introduction to nuclear from a control systems perspective. And I'd learned the control systems through the chemical experience and previous. So it's just added up through a career. But really, I worked for General Motors the longest. I put robots into car plants. My automation cells replaced 20 workers with 10 robots.
Wow.
And that was a part of my career. The other side of that, these were really dangerous, nasty jobs in a welding environment. We put in fresh infrastructure for air handling systems to pull all the welding dust. Tons of welding dust a day come off of these things as you're welding cars, 60, 70 jobs a minute. So air handling systems were put in, welding controllers. The electricians were trained. I actually trained the trainers how to train our electricians on
Train
the
the
network.
trainer.
The idea of a peer and a mentor is real big in my context, in my world. That's what I strive to be, the person next to you, whether it's in a foxhole or working on whatever project's going on.
That's
So
cool.
that's just
Good.
but that means you have to be open your whole life to learning. There's no one book reference that I can go to for much of anything. So it's a challenge both ways.
I think a lot of us have that. We're lifelong learners here, aren't we, guys, out in the chat? Yep, we've got Facebook
you know
here,
more
and
than,
it's
you know
growing.
more than you realize. It surrounds you. You can't help but you go pick a can off the shelf. The can didn't come from the shelf. The guy
Right?
and the stuff in it came from somewhere else, and that's another story. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, the tonight the nuclear focus was how this started was I've listened to you. I decided, well, how long ago it was, I asked you, I need you to come on with me, but I wanted to have an actual, to have the pro and the con side, but that didn't happen tonight. Tonight we've got to talk about Michael Shellenberger, who is just wrote a book, and when you have a book that is called Apocalyse Never, it's and you have an environmental channel, and he is calling us climate alarmists. It does make you think, and I'm fooling around with screens because I want to see the screen come up, and see if it's coming up. Yeah, okay, so when we go to the article, which has an ad, of course, I was just going to pull up this article and show everybody that we were talking about Michael Shellenberger, and I knew that Richard was the one to come on because I saw this. He wrote a book called Forbes Censors Award-Winning Environmentalists Apology Over a 3-Decade Climate Scare. So this is what we originally started talking about, and we subsequently were looking at his videos, and he is a journalist, and I think I had pulled up something on him. I don't know how many of you might be familiar with him. I'm looking to see, but he's very controversial.
He is a journalist, and his education is not in anything to do with the topics he's discussing. So
no, but he collates
right.
and distills and puts it all together.
Yes.
And he sure sounds a good game, and he started his TED Talk thing. And I'm not going to start with putting the guy down. I just they say he was an environmentalist, but what happens to somebody to then write this and make comments? This is Michael, and make comments. They called him a progressive and say, where is it? He starts out the article, and I had sent you those bullet points. He's formally apologizing for the climate scare that we created over 30 years. So he basically goes down and says this.
I should apologize for making a third of the world's plastic. As a matter of fact, the reason the Saturn vehicle had such good fenders is because of our plastic. We almost enabled the Saturn plant in Tennessee, which I visited, another story, to make those cars.
Well, we all used the plastic. Every one of us that's in this chat cannot say we didn't use it because we live in the culture where it's made, we're using it. Not that we always want to, right? So,
Yep.
okay, but what happened to him? What happened to him? All right, I just screwed up with the article. And I need to do one little thing before we go on. It's called fixing your show as you do it. Okay. All right, everybody. Fixing my show as I do it. Um, so, Rich, I want to go through those couple things. I guess I'm stuck on this format of articles, but I want to bring. I'm so used to working with Jennifer, but here we are.
Yeah, and I can't see them
I
either.
know.
So
I'm only going to. I know because you're on your phone, but I'm only going to. I'm going to throw something out, and we're going to talk about that. These things that he said, and I want to get your thoughts first of all, because he says humans are not causing a sixth mass extinction, and then he is completely uh, in opposite world from Naomi Klein and everyone else that we are familiar with. So, what gives here with this dude? What do you think about that one?
semantics.
Yeah?
That that's all I can account it to. Semantics. And if you get in I mentioned the black box of nuclear engineering. I didn't see what was behind or in front of me. I wasn't supposed to talk outside
Right.
of my box. So when you get into those, it's a gated community thing. They're all partying together. They're all on the same level. They've got disposable income and votes, and they're talking the same shit amongst themselves. And there's no one there to challenge them. And you don't get invited to those parties if you're someone like me. So, and I don't drink. So that's a big part of it is this closed culture, this closed-minded. I equate them to evangelists because the tone, just the whole nature of their presentations ring to that evangelism, say so much that you can't counter a single thing.
But that's what they
So,
said about, that's what he's countering about us. I mean, I looked at the videos and saw this guy on every right wing station, and it's like, and then he said in the video, like you and I talked about, that he can't get an interview with any left wing anybody because everybody's just summarily dismissing him as a shill. And I
all
mean,
right. Well, see, there's a nuance in what he's saying, and there's qualifiers all around this stuff.
yeah.
So technically, nature is creating this extinction. So yeah, we've got not we're nature is so much bigger than us. She's doing what she's going to do. She has been making extinctions over millennium. It has come. That's why I keep the channel Crime Pays but Botany doesn't, and the way he presents the plants versus the soil that the plants are in and the age of the plants and how long they've been there. So that channel rebutes the nonsense about the forest fires he was talking about and the fires.
Oh yeah.
Where those houses were built, those aren't new trees. Those are native plants and species that have gone through nature's repetitive cycles for longer than we've been writing about it. So that's hard to understand. If you think the Earth is young, you're going to have a problem with these concepts, with these ideas, with these facts and explanations for the real world. So to the extinction, yeah, you could go there with nature itself has been killing us off. It is part of a huge cycle that we can show. It is the way things work. We have hastened that. We have changed the curve. It's the same thing in the climate conversation. We have changed the curve. We have huge reasons, math models, statistics, numbers, and people, professionals that know how to do this, are saying we're not on the trajectory we think we should be on. They're using vector physics. They're using
Mm-hmm.
game theory calculations. And that's just one aspect and one angle. And then there's 100 different sciences using something a little different nuance out there that's saying the same thing. we're off track for where the planet should be, and humans can influence that.
So how can
So the
he make a
planet
claim
is
like
going
that?
some.
How does he make a claim like that? Just
See,
summarily
I
says
just
we're
made a
not.
claim.
We're
You can argue
watch.
with me. I
No,
just
I
made a
know, but
claim.
we're watching extinctions. I freaking do shows here on
I
extinction, on elephants, on animals. How does he say that we're not there? I don't know what happened to this guy, if he was ever. But I'm going to go on because I'm getting myself aggravated. I really
No, you're
wanted.
right. I back up and look. I question their motivations, their reasons, but then when I look at how they're presenting it, they're doing sermons. They're not talking to you. They're just I don't know what they're doing. Well, I do know what they're doing, but
Well, I want to get to the. In this article, he doesn't really go into um, his nuclear advocacy as much, but Michael is a complete nuclear advocate, and I don't know if it's if he's working for anybody. He says he's not. I mean, I have a little clip here of him defending himself on an interview, but Torstein says he just wants attention. Attention just like Lomborg. You guys are helping him out. Well, not really, because we're going to have to talk about nuclear energy, which Richard and I have talked about. We're just saying that there's a controversial figure out there, and what makes the guy tick? Where is it coming from that he says
and is he
things that.
right? Has he got valid points in there that are worth discussing? So we had talked before about trying to pick out some of those points. What was the next one that he's got? What was it?
Well, let's go
Yeah,
down to we're not.
we're
I don't want to do the natural disasters one. I think that's a long time. He okay. Carbon emissions are declining in the most rich nations and have been declining in Britain, Germany, and France since the mid 1970s.
okay because we learned and we moved all of this shit to China. That began right. That began or
There you
overseas,
go.
India. So that began. That huge, massive
You're
move began
fucking
when I'd like to be wrong. That's a problem. It began
right. All
when
right.
the
Mm.
EPA and the Superfund stuff got started. The massive chemical companies that were up in the Northeast flat moved. They packed up and moved down to southern states, red states, poorly educated states still, and took advantage of the way federal laws are written about pollution guidelines. The states have the final say, right? They found states that were very favorable to their way of thinking. And so Texas is lined with these plants. But the plants down there preceded this. There was other things going on to the
Mm-hmm.
war industry. But so that shift was a major change in financial and accounting rules and tax rules. And these plants, these corporations over decades took advantage of that, and they wholesale moved their operations overseas. On the good side, they built new plants. And this is decades we're talking. This isn't yesterday. This
Mm-hmm.
is 1970s, 60s. So they went overseas and they built new neat plants, but they weren't highly technical or automated.
Right.
So they were a little better, but now they're old, aged, decrepit things. If you look at the story of Bhopal and Union Carbide, that was an old, aged, decrepit plant. It was one of the reasons my plant was built, is that Bhopal experience. I had Union Carbide equipment in our plant that generated high purity hydrogen. And every time I went by it, I looked at it like, I know what it does, but it's still made by Union Carbide. So Bhopal. So that was an industrial accident. So yeah, I, the shifts, you can see them. You can see the pollution in China. We talked briefly about Henry Kissinger's move during Vietnam in
Oh,
bringing
you should bring.
America
That
to
was
China.
good. That was good. You should talk about that one. I was amazed about your story about your father. That was
Oh,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, my dad happened to,
I'm doing control
he
stuff.
was a, he was a manager at the State Department, facility manager, a contractor, and he met and knew Henry Kissinger at the time.
Wild.
So there's a ballroom upstairs and a huge carpet in there that had to be taken up, and it took masses of people to roll this huge it's a record-setting Persian rug. So just stories like that. Well, one I didn't mention is the toilets blowing off the walls in the State Department was a common thing.
Who
A whole
knows
toilet.
these things? That's pretty wild.
It,
Yeah, man,
that was
interesting
long ago.
people
I'm sure
make
things have
life
changed.
interesting.
But this is the depth of some of these stories, though. This the forgotten tales of how we got here and why we know what pollution is. We know what a plume is. We
Okay.
know how pollution travels. We know about a lot more.
I'm getting waylaid by the chat. Everybody's having a blast in there, and somebody had a question, but I can't find it. And I was going to do questions after, um, but everybody's. This is pretty interactive here.
So,
Hmm.
well, what went through? One of the things that gets left behind in the nuclear conversations is where did all this go? As much as people say it's safe, we put billions of dollars into cleaning it up. But
Yeah.
it's so somewhere between the story, I got into an argument about whether one person died from Fukushima or more people died. Now, I can't prove more people died. The one that did die is something that they can go debate. I'll take the one. That's enough to say, okay, there was some harm there.
Yeah. There you
But I'm
go.
not satisfied. I don't believe you. I'm just saying, if you want to say one, I'll let you say, but don't say zero. But a
Mm-hmm.
part of the equation is we learned this from the atomic age, from testing and blowing these things up in the Nevada desert. We learned how this stuff travels. We learned that it's called stochastic results.
Okay.
It's that 10 in 1,000, it's 10 in 1,000,000 that are going to have something happen. But it's not today, it's tomorrow. It's 5 years out. This is a whole field of the insurance industry is very good at this.
Mm-hmm.
The CDC is very good at this. They use this to estimate where hospitals should go. If they can predict enough need for a hospital to be built because of population flows and whatever's going on, like Louisiana is famous for cancers.
Mm.
I don't know what
Yeah.
anybody's doing for them,
Sure
but
is.
that's a fact. So, yes, there's so many ways to, but see, those things are forgotten. The
Yeah.
harm is there. We know about it, but it's obfuscated and
Right.
it's minimized. So I'm just trying to bring some of this back to the forefront, the rest of the conversation back. That's where they're just deep conversations.
Well, they
Sorry.
are. And you know what? You do 5 minute videos, you do 6 minute videos on these really deep things that make, well, me and who views you. And now I hope you get some subs because you're here and you're interesting. Uh, and it's, but you're not, you know, you're deep. And that's good. I like that. I think a lot of people here would appreciate that. But I can't get the question. There was one question somebody specifically had. I remember it. He's going to have. John, here it was. Okay. What do you think of the liquid salt thorium reactors to get rid of nuclear waste? Thank you. There you go,
Okay.
John. We're going to take you first.
The the thorium reactor stands on its own as a thing. For it to process nuclear waste, it has to as part of its nature because the thorium needs a seed nuclide in order to keep the action running well.
Mm-hmm.
The problem has been now this one I've been following for about 4 decades, 40 years now.
Wow.
The materials needed to be able to do liquid salts at those temperatures simply don't exist. They cannot bring it into production. They've been able to create it in tiny little labs, but to actually the engineers that have to scale this thing up
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. Those materials don't exist yet. They might exist, but they don't. So it's got an operations problem inherent in its run. And because it's molten salt, like our we had it's called an exothermic reactor that made this plastic. You burn orthoxylene, which is an explosive,
Okay.
but you can't use it as a rocket fuel because it makes plastic and coats everything. So that's why it's not a rocket fuel, but they did look at it. It turns into phthalic anhydride. It is burns at about 2,000 degrees. That reactor was cooled with molten salt. So this stainless steel pressure or high specialty metals vessel had liners of a liner for salt fluid to circulate. When the salt got below 140, 120 degrees, it hardened. So if the reactor ever got too cool, to start it back up took huge amounts of time. It took days, even a week, to get the reactor to melt the salt to be able to start the real reactor. So that's the challenge of working with salts like that. Salts are, by their nature, a salt.
Right.
They're reactive. They're a chloride or whatever the other salts. They can be made of anything. So there are a lot of issues. And then there's a waste stream, which is another nuclear waste stream, regardless of what level it is, low, medium, or high. So you haven't dealt with that. The other side of this is the tens of thousands of tons of nuclear fuel setting in 100 nuclear plants in America. The plans to do those things. One of my latest videos was about a tidal wave on the sands of Houston that happened because of a earthquake in Mexico. And it turns out one of our listeners, it was a personal thing. So,
Oh.
it but I only saw the wave. I saw the rest of it on the news, but I saw this wave. That wave is a seismic activity that has to be accounted for in these studies. Where is that seismic study? I might be able to find it, but where is somebody talking to it that's able to say, hey, good, bad, or indifferent? Where is that debate?
I've got you on alone. You got the big screen, baby. I put you on alone.
So
I'm just playing. We've got somebody else in Snork. Hi, Snork. I'm currently against thorium or transuranic reactors. What's a transuranic reactor?
I'm not sure. It's a pretty loose term.
Okay.
Transuranics are all the radioactive elements, but there's an array of isotopes for other elements that aren't considered transuranics.
We will be babysitting that
that help?
nuclear. So sorry. I'm not handling this very well because everybody's like really into this topic. You know what?
Oh, good. Thank you.
It's a good topic, and I'm going to look at this again. There was, he did those TED talks, and they were talking about that he was with a group, the ecomodernists, and it's the environmental philosophy which argues that humans can protect nature by using technology to decouple the anthropogenic impacts from the natural world. And
So,
and there's a lot of scientists that are in there. What do you know about ecomodernism that is, because it's uncomfortable sounding to me.
Sounds like a cool clique for some kids to go join a frat party, maybe, or something like. I I I don't know. I was in France. That sounds like a French kind of thing. The French like some of that. You know, I don't know. I don't know just what that means. We terraform the planet. That's the movie thing. We're going to go forth
Yeah.
and terraform planets. Take a look. Look at Google Earth. You can see what we've done. You can see what the Mayans and the South American cultures did. That's what we do.
I
We're
have a
using the
question
planet.
about that, what we do. Well, because he doesn't talk about the waste, except for the fact that he makes it sound like, oh, well, there's so little waste there, it's usable, and they're doing all this stuff. And then I read different things, and even where I live, we're having a West Valley nuclear demonstration project. We don't know what to do with 50 years of shit, nuclear, radiated shit that's sitting there. Nobody wants it.
Yeah.
So,
I was challenged to go do a survey somewhere,
oh yeah,
and all I need is about $57,000 worth of equipment, and we're good.
we're
Or
good.
somebody that knows what the fuck they're doing, and I'll meet them there and help them out.
Right.
But that's measurement sciences.
Measurement
It's following
sciences. Yeah.
procedures.
You said you
Learn,
measured
learn,
everything.
learn.
You learned how to measure everything.
Yeah, basically, yes. That's the best. You can look up that word metrology. You can find the MLS is 2874 in Marine Corps jargon, and it was fascinating. It was. I met atomic clocks. I saw the sun before most people saw the sun because the National Bureau of Standards had a satellite on the sun 24 hours a day because we watch the sun because military communications depends on knowing when a solar flare is going to happen so they can shift bands or whatever they need to cover for it. Close satellites, or we've been doing this a long time.
Hmm. Long time. You know, there was another thing I wanted to ask you about France. What do they do with their waste? They're supposedly, the nuclear, their panacea is nuclear. What do they do with their waste there? They got to have the same
They're storing
problem.
it. They're storing it. They do some reprocessing. Their reactors and their fuels and their processes are not American patents. They are European patents. And we don't play with their technology. It's like the CANDU reactors up in Canada.
Okay.
This is a very large game of patents and and copyrights that are beyond my pay grade because that's how expensive these tools are and how secret and descriptive they are. And I'm sure some of the things, there are top secret patents you don't get to know about, period. It's
Yeah.
the way it works. So,
Top secret mining for uranium, and the Russians
yeah.
are now
I mean,
giving they're giving Egypt 10 years of uranium. They signed with Egypt for their nuclear power plants. And what were we talking
yep.
about today with the Saudis? And now the Saudis also got nuclear things from us. I'm not comfortable with it, but I
Well,
was gonna
Jared
play
Kushner
this.
helped sell those reactors.
No
But
shit.
the challenge is that most of this was funded and done under Obama's administration. This is one of my faults with him. On the other side of it, he just signed the laws and the shit that was handed to him from the House and the Senate. But he gave away the nuclear. It's obscene. It's just obscene. Very upsetting.
Mm.
Bad, bad, bad.
That bad. Well, I have that little clip of him. I don't
The
know if
ACA
anybody.
saved my son's life, so I got to thank
You what?
everybody out there that helped get the ACA.
Oh, the ACA saved your son's life. Yeah. Well, they're trying to
I'm
ruin
balanced.
everything. Hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
put that little clip on, that little clip I took of him, just so everybody can see him. And sorry, Torstein, I'm giving him.
I can't prove it. I find a lot of nervousness around nuclear. You would rather that it doesn't exist. We would rather it doesn't exist, not necessarily consciously. And so when you get to these events, and there was a whole generation of baby boomers that were traumatized by Hollywood and the U.S. government itself, the duck and cover stuff. Australia had that book On the Beach, was the big Australia book in the 60s. I'm born in 71. The day after was, I think, 1983. So I was 12 when the whole family was supposed to sit down and watch this movie about nuclear war. I mean, why was I anti-nuclear? That had a little bit to do with it. I mean, the
Do you
association.
stand by that essay on? Do you stand by that essay on nuclear weapons that caused some controversy a couple of years ago?
Absolutely, I stand by everything I've written. And
Right.
if I don't stand by it, by the way, I've criticized it. So that where my views have changed, I have tried to be a serious person. And when I change my mind, I actually don't kind of mumble. I usually write about it and give a TED talk. So no, absolutely not. I mean, there's no all the political science community. It's funny. Michael's saying that nuclear weapons have not made the world more dangerous. So controversial. Well, I mean, is it? We're in one of the longest periods of peace since the 17th century. And you go interview political scientists, I mean, the whole field of international relations is built on this concept of deterrence. It's like gravity or power density. It's a core concept. So this idea that there's not deterrence is this wacky idea of anti-nuclear people who think that there's some other reason that India and Pakistan, India and China constrain their conflicts.
Yep.
I can't prove it.
I think he sounds like he needs some wine, some cheese with that wine. But that's what my take. He's saying basically that nuclear fucking weapons, sorry, are, yes, they're acting like they're supposed to. They're a deterrent and they're never going to be used until they're used. And we've used them in this country. And so he's actually rationalizing the nuclear arms race. And he's making that case that Pakistan and China are deterring each other by ever growing their nuclear. I mean, how ludicrous is that?
Well, we deployed tactical nuclear weapons again, which had been taken off the battlefield under the Trump administration and Republican reign. So I haven't seen the war tactics, what has changed, what the first use rules are, but that means a field commander out there probably has a tactical nuclear weapon in one of his trucks just in case. So what are we doing? What are we doing?
What are we doing? Hey, we got an interesting comment here. Idaho Lorax, hi, is kind of new and has a big thing here, and I'm going to read it. How about we get some hazmat suits, a bunch of barrows, clean up our uranium materials on private properties, and have the county, city, state recycling pick it up and let it be their problem. Acutani? Uh-oh, I lost it. This is what the Idaho 2nd District congressional candidate is proposing. A lot of talk, little to no cleanup. We already hoard the uranium materials, but what must we hoard the waste as well? Welcome to the channel. I like your name. That was yes, interesting.
I take it she lives near one of the labs.
Yeah, in Idaho. Must be. Absolutely. Wow. We have a great oh wow, Thomas Ackerman's with us tonight. He is definitely,
I love Thomas.
Yes.
I used to watch Thomas, and we just kind of parted ways because I said things in ways that people don't like them said.
Well, Thomas,
but he's a good man.
Yes, he is. There have been more wars in the last 70 years than all of history. Peace equals war. That's Thomas. Hi, Thomas. Glad you joined us. Yeah, it's nice to have him because
building a supply chain.
Thomas does some great discussion also.
I watched much of his artwork being put together. Yes.
Oh yeah, always in the back of his yeah, Thomas Ackerman. Check his channel out, guys.
Please, yes.
YouTube is full of such interesting people. Hello, Sandy. We've had our disagreements, but you know what? It's okay. That's what it's all about. You can disagree. Val says nuclear war is pretty unthinkable. The suffering of being burned alive is pretty much unthinkable. Yeah, wouldn't you think that? I mean, Richard, you've got your political thoughts on why we're like this. Give it to us.
Global supply chains, global corporations getting us the plastic that we want to live today. And when you break those big systems, you better be ready for big fallout. There's no easy answers to any of this. You can't shut off the cell phones. How would you do that? So the things that people talk about turning off, shut it down, means millions or billions of people have to die. They aren't going to get something that they need, the plastic for the food that, or the can for the goods that they have to buy, or it won't get shipped. So these are just big things that have grown up around us. They were here before the Bible was written, this commerce and trade thing, mining and metallurgy and ceramics, these things, commerce and trade. That is because we like the baubles and the gold from other countries, or we like the fish from the Mediterranean. And I do. I must say, it's nice to be able to enjoy those things, but this is the cost of it. We should be so focused on recycling. We should be so focused on earth sciences at our schools, where kids learn. Our oceans. I grew up with Jacques Cousteau. Did anyone else watch Jacques?
Yes,
You
of
go back and look
course.
now, and that
Yes.
just disappeared. It's like the oceans became flat or something, and none of that. I thought we'd be undersea somewhere doing something very interesting down there, just because we're curious cats.
No, you
But
know
that
what
never
we're
happened.
doing? We're putting sonar sounds and driving our wildlife in the oceans crazy through the Navy.
And we're polluting the ocean. We're
Oh,
dumping our
well,
trash.
yeah,
The ocean was New York's garbage dump for decades. New Jersey was New York's garbage dump,
I
still
know.
is.
I'm from there.
Michigan is Ontario's garbage dump. When I lived in Michigan, we were having conversations about importing Ontario trash. Michigan makes big money off of trash. The tallest ski slope in Michigan is on an old trash dump.
Oh, really? An old trash dump. Hey, Molly, if everyone lived in the suburbs, they would be able to go green, use solar power, wind, and water, and we don't need pollutants anymore. That's a difficult one because basically to make anything is polluting and everything. And you know, another thing I wanted to mention to you, Richard, was Michael Shellenberger basically is the person who is saying we have to remain the same. We have to keep the growth paradigm going. We have to consume. Because another thing he said that really got me was about the food. And he said that we need to. Where is it? Oh, this one was. Shit. Basically, we need to make, more meat. And I don't disagree with him about food but he says food surpluses will continue to rise as the world gets hotter. How is that going to happen? When the deserts are happening. Is he saying that we're going to have an Arctic that's a growing? We're going to live like that. That the world is going to be okay. How do you say these things?
Well, I don't listen to those things. I just flat don't. I really don't listen to those. I can spot within the first five. It's like listening to Jordan Peterson. If anyone enjoys stuff, 2 minutes of that is enough. He adds no value. He
Apocalypse
answers no
Never.
questions, and he causes people internal turmoil and things that, hey, live life, enjoy it. It
Right.
sucks, but enjoy it anyway.
Well, I wanted to. What is I wanted to ask you about? Oh, well, somebody asked me about actually shutting these things down. First of all, these reactors need a lot of water, so you have to put them on water. It's very resource heavy, and as we are, I watched Michael make this big thing about sea level rise, and he's like, "Wow!" He was whining about something, and basically, to me, having to build these things there is insane. But he came up with, well, now haven't you seen the cities that have these big walls and all this? So it's anything and everything to rationalize the use of nuclear. And also when he said about, oh, it's how we grew up being, we're afraid of it. We're afraid of it, and that's why we're not using it. But you can demonstrate why we should be afraid of it. Why should we be afraid of it? Go ahead, you got
That's
the floor.
it is so many different reasons, but the bottom line is generational pollution. The waste from this is hard to detect, hard to clean up, hard to remove. It is forever waste.
Yeah.
It is expected we plan for it to live beyond the life of the planet. That's how long the outlook is for this. Sweden, one of the reasons I went to visit is to see what the culture there was around their decision for deep mine sequestration of their waste. So that's that's a Yucca Mountain solution for Sweden.
Nobody
But
wants
Sweden only has a few reactors. We have 100 reactors. To pile that much into one location, and I can already point out where they've gone wrong on the salt dome storage. They never. So that's another video.
Go ahead. No,
So
you can
they
mention
keep
if
on
it's
slipping these little things. They want to do salt dome storage. There is a note about a huge release at a salt dome. One of the storage areas, the canisters rusted and melted, and a fire started inside the canister and blah. Well, if I remember the original design basis, those sites were not supposed to have atmosphere in them because the salt domes themselves have not been exposed to even humidity for millions of years. So introducing just people breathing, the moisture in your breath over 10, 20, 30 years of watching these canisters can change the wall chemistry of the salt.
God.
You add, it's very subtle. This is inside of ISO processes. This is risk analysis. Only it's long term. It's not tomorrow. It's not instant gratification. It is a 30, 50, 100,000. What can happen? Like that earthquake
but there's a
I
lot
mentioned.
of what can happen. There's a
That's
lot.
right.
Look at Fukushima, and you know what? They minimize. They minimize. He's trying to all say about deaths. I think that you know, he might say he's got all the data, but I think it's manipulated or cherry picked away. Just like he's very creative that way.
And to poke back at it, you've got to point to okay. So here's a poke back. There's a hospital in Chernobyl. There's a few hospitals around the Chernobyl area.
Yeah.
And there's a hospital in Cuba that has patients that are victims of Chernobyl radiation.
Wow.
I don't know the total number of those patients. I don't know how many of them have died.
How are they alive now?
Being exposed. Because it's like cancers. My mom died a miserable death of cancers over 20 years. It started with a full hysterectomy way back when that was terrible, and it still is.
Right.
Vasectomy. It could have been traced to DDT in the city's drinking water because of waste drums stored in a former nuclear materials storage site in a little town in Massachusetts. So these old abandoned military bunkers, they put DDT cans in. The DDT cans rusted. They leaked into the groundwater. One of the wells was contaminated. A study was done. It's a part of what insurance companies do, a cluster study that identified this, that showed the people that were drinking water had a high incidence of cancer. Not huge, but enough that yes, this is one of the things. But my mom had other exposures. So my dad, miserable death of cancer, started with a little thing up here on his skull. He was an atomic test veteran as well. That was something that happened decades before. Could he trace it back to that? It didn't matter. He had health insurance. He was covered. So it was decades later. But those are called stochastic results. They're long-term outlook. They're predictions of what should happen. And I understand those exist from the atomic age, and yet they've disappeared. So when somebody says 0 for Chernobyl or 50, brave soldiers that died fighting the initial blaze, well, that is not the number. The number is the result of generations of people now have been affected by that fallout. Period. And you can go find it yourself, but you can't find a number. You won't find a good article. Rachel Maddow started on Fukushima with a lot of energy and just lost it. It's like, where did that go? What happened to that?
What happened?
And I don't know.
The next news story came along. Nobody talks about this shit. Nobody talks about these the water usage that these things use. Nobody talks about radiation that is in the, let out into the environment. And when they do, they're obfuscating the data, I think. And I'm not a scientist, so you know what, Michael? If you see this, guess what? You're not either. All
So
right.
I am an engineer. I worked with scientists. I
Not
enabled them
you,
on.
him. He's
Oh
not a
yeah,
scientist. You are
but
an engineer scientist, but he's a journalist. So, like you said, I wasn't talking to you, neither is he. I said, Michael, if you're watching, of course he wouldn't be, but he started a YouTube channel. I want to do something here. I got a little something for Torstein to show from Torstein. Uh, Here, this is for you. Um, some comment that I found when I was looking through the Reddit, Michael Shellenberg Reddit, and nuclear power. So he said, the comment was, well, today he basically came out as a shill for the Republicans, spewing out the typical Lomborg-esque, that's for you, Torstein, lies about climate change and how the environmentalists have everything wrong. One of the points was the fires have decreased 25% since 2003. Oh, that's all. That one. But that's actually a clever way of lying these days. It's true, but how do you compensate for the fact that we've gotten both richer and better at preventing fires altogether? You can't. So anyone who makes this argument, in fact, is trying to convince you of something that is not true. In the case of the title of his book, conveniently released today, that climate change isn't that bad, guys. That's what he's saying. So that I posted that. I wasn't really going to show it, but I did that because Torstein brought up Senior Lomborg. So thank you, Torstein.
yeah, it's amazing but the challenge back to that is I'm going to have to go to 50 different examples of why he's wrong. You could go to recent news about high tides down in California. You can go to news about whole subdivisions in Florida can't flush their toilet because the seawater is high enough that it's flooding all of their sewage systems. So, but it's subtle. It's little. It's over there, and it's not going to get better. It's getting worse.
I don't know
So
how anybody could say it's getting better. But again, when there's greed and there's money and there is profit, although Michael, vehemently denies it, I just think that there's something else there. I mean, the nuclear industry wants to come back. Shirhana was with us before. She said the nuclear industry's dead, but if these oligarchs have their way, it's not going to be dead. It's not going to be dead. What do you think about that, Rich?
yeah, it's the push is out there. This sales bullshit goes on. I imagine they've got this spiel in every language you can think of, and just this is how easy the sales pitch is. Trump's kids are out there selling this shit
Yeah, they're
because
saying it's
the
it's
money
carbon
behind them.
neutral. It'll save the earth. But the thing is, it's just like solar and wind. You still got to build them. And it's going to take fossil fuels to build them. So, of course, Shellenberger had to build in, oh, we need fossil fuels too. How can you not, right?
There's going to be a transition time,
Yeah.
short of a revolution and burning everything down. There needs to be in between. There could be we do shit better,
Yeah.
and
Well, I would be
good.
interested. There's somebody here, and that's fine. I'm not sure about nuclear power. We're not, there's read read the book or read, but you have to have both sides of the story, and you have to really get the which I don't understand all the physics about it, and I don't want to be emotionally reactive like and then fall into Schellenberger's trap as a boomer who's reacting to the day after the movie, the day after, because I'm not. I look at, geez, I lived across the water from Indian Point, which is in New York, which is on the Hudson River. And I'm sorry, but it always made me uncomfortable. I dated a guy that worked there. I bet he's not even alive anymore. because that was in that was, oh, I won't like day age myself. That was a very long time ago, but it was scary then, and I think the cancer rates are high, like in Hanford, for example. I did some research on Hanford, and it's in the towns around Hanford. The children's cancer rate was high. It's there's no doubt these kids were getting sick. There's the data's there. They just conveniently don't want to talk about it. And then they want to talk about, well, you can be exposed to 9 millisieverts or whatever it is, sieverts of radiation, and it's fine. I don't believe that. So I don't believe it. But now, I'll probably get every pro-nuclear person on here wanting to debate it.
Beware, just be conscious. Anybody that speaks that loosely about it is misrepresenting it, or they don't understand it, period. Because there's simply more to it. That's why
Yeah.
I've got 700 videos I did in, I've only been doing this 6 months. The story is generations. This is a body of knowledge, human knowledge. So we know a little bit about some of this stuff. It's hard to explain, but going back to the reactors
Yep.
needing water, I pointed out to somebody that we're downriver on the Columbia River from the
Okay.
Columbia Generating Station, which is part of the Hanford Reservation. So besides all the leaks and aquifer problems at Hanford and its nastiness, that plant sits there. One of the things it does, and it has a permit, is it pumps hot water into the Columbia River. It's part of the heat exchange process, period. There's a permit for that. They're allowed certain amounts.
Mm-hmm.
When the river temperature rises too high, the plant has to cut its production rate back by regulations. So right there is an operating limit. And every one of these plants has these operating limits because they'll boil the fish or the lobster or whatever is out there. So every one of these things has these rules. Now they can change the rules, and they will, because that's how they work, but that's the rules right now. So they throttle back. So I get a pushback from one of our apologist friends, and I simply say, go read the EPA records. That's where they are. I've got about 7 years of this in Facebooks where I point people to the EPA records. I walk through these things, no videos, but the information is there if they're interested in it. And if they're so nuclear, so wanting to know about this, I see some gaps. I want those gaps addressed. And that's one speak for putting it. If I was in a meeting trying to present this to other professionals and not be irate and shake and smoke cigarettes.
Hey, by the way, we've got somebody that took us up on the offer, although I am in no way qualified to have a debate on nuclear energy. Forbid TV, welcome. Would live debate any of you anytime. I do more radiation testing than anyone on YouTube. Well, that's really interesting. Thanks for coming. And okay, we like to learn about that. Radiation testing is a pretty big job, and you probably do it around the plants. I don't know.
Okay,
who
if you want
are.
to do radiation testing, what
Yeah.
I have to recommend is, which lab is it now? LLNL. There's a course called ResRad offered by Lawrence Livermore National Labs.
Oh.
This teaches you how to do a radiological assessment in conjunction with the right tools. You have to pay for the course to go through it. And I've read all the materials, but I haven't taken the course, but I've had the course elsewhere. So if you want to do surveys, if you want to know how to do that, I suggest you dig that book out and you build your procedures up based upon what they're telling you to do, and then we'll go do a survey. Otherwise, these folks are pulling. This is why I haven't gone and done it. I can wave this Geiger counter around and make all kinds of claims, but I know I can't back it up well enough. So I need a lab with $10,000 worth of credit that I can send a sample to and say, this is what the Geiger counter said, this is what the lab said. Or I need a $40,000 instrument that used to cost $250,000 to be able to go out in the field. And I need a license to software to analyze the data from this spectrometer in order to be able to make sense of it and have a reasonable conversation with peers that I haven't found yet.
Well,
I haven't
it
tried.
sounds like this guy does. He's tested, or woman, I don't know. I have tested at Hanford, he said. So, that's
if
an
you go to
interesting
the-
job. I would love to. Okay, wait. I want to add this because I am open. No increase in cancer since 2011 either. There wasn't enough radiation released for that to happen. Now that's in Hanford because I know that there were issues, and there were issues of workers at the facility that could not get workers' comp. There was a whole big thing there, and they were suffering radiation sickness.
And they are. I have friends that grew up and lived in the area. I worked with a group that tried to build some momentum here called No Nukes Northwest. It was part of the Occupy movement. And I don't know if they're still out there in Facebook or not, but it fell apart because there was a lot of passion and a lot of different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that isn't my thing particularly. I'm not good with the passion stuff.
The passion stuff. Oh, wow. I have more than 10,000 radiation detectors in stock. Well, you must be a big business. You're out there. Well, if you know what? If this person, if he's testing, then he's doing it to protect us anyway, because they have to do that for protecting. I mean, you know, it wouldn't be a financially viable thing if people were like really dropping dead all the time.
It'd be too obvious.
Yeah,
But,
I have to
but
give
I
them
want
the
you to go
benefit.
back. When people start spouting this medical stuff and no harm, you have to remember it doesn't show up immediately. It shows up
Right.
3 years, and it can even show up in your children.
This is what Karen's
Okay,
saying.
so
Latent.
that's how it works.
Is that the
Period.
latent period
Now,
of
think
carcinogenesis?
about- It depends. We could do a whole conversation about biological uptake and biological half-lives of elements through your body, through biological systems. That's a fascinating stuff. So that's how it gets into you, how it resides, where it resides. Remember, it's cumulative in many cases. Like if you get a cesium exposure, cesium tends to go to the heart. So prolonged cesium exposure, because the cesium has a long life in your body. It's not one of those high exchange items. It will sit around, and then another cesium comes in. Your body thinks it's calcium. It's being fooled because it's that way in the periodic table. So now your heart's getting a few more, you know, it gets 10 doses, or it gets 10 wrench, whatever they want to call it, okay? It's 10 counts on a Geiger counter.
Yep.
Today. Tomorrow it gets another 10 counts. Well, now internally, those added up to about 14 counts. So now your heart fails decades later for some reason you're not quite sure of. The testing to find out if that was the cause is one of our national labs, or one of those labs that very few people get to go into. I've visited a few. So that's where that is. When the shellfish die-off happened, or the starfish die-off happened up in Washington, I was doing a radiological survey with a Geiger counter and logging data. I've got the data records and the maps, but I didn't have the technology I do with the new meter. So I went and I mapped the coast. While I was there, I saw the starfish dying in the ocean. So I contacted the University of Southern California, sent them a photo, said the starfish are dying off here. I want you noted this because everyone was saying, oh, it's only up in Washington. Don't worry about it. Well, it was down in Oregon, and then some months later that came up too. In investigating that, because I was curious about a tide of Fukushima release, my thought is a pathogen in the ocean was modified. Some plankton or a red tide type of thing was modified in the ocean genetically, and that is what is caused this starfish wasting disease. That theory, right? Just, 2 cents. In researching that, I went and found one lab, it's the only one I know of on the planet, that can do a genetic test for radiation damage. It is within the Bethesda Medical Complex. They don't reply to anything. There's no way to contact them, and I wouldn't be the one to do it anyway. But I mentioned that to the researchers I was in contact. No, this is what, 7, 8 years ago now, and there was no interest. It is outside of their scope. It is not in their box to ask those questions or those types of questions. Their funding doesn't allow it, and though they might have the questions, they really can't ask them. The equipment is not sitting in a lab next door. You can't sneak a sample out and go somewhere and do this. You need, because of this parts per trillion we're talking about, you just can't do it at home. You just can't do it. So I've seen what he does. You can, if you want to. I visited the Hanford site. I'm sorry, I might be talking too long. I don't know what time it is. So, but I visited the Hanford site and took a tour, and on the sign says no recording equipment. This was the Hanford site tour offered by the DOE. There's 2 tours there. One's a tour of the external facilities and what's been made into a park, and the other one was the internal Hanford workings tour. So you get to drive through and around where they're processing the waste from these tanks. So I took my Geiger counter because it is a personal dosimeter in that mode, and that is a health and safety item. So I ignored the signs that said no recording devices on this tour.
Oh.
I did not ask the question, but I also didn't hide it much. So it's a big thing. I keep it on my waist because I keep it at gonad height, which is part of some of the rules from another set of documents I can dig up for you about body silhouettes and dosimetry. So somebody there had an idea I had this meter. They didn't have the guts to ask me about it. While I was on this tour, inside the facility, they had an experience, an excursion, an accident. Something happened, alarms went off, and the bus all of a sudden had to take a detour around an area. So at this point, I'm holding my Geiger counter, but this bus is built specifically to drive around there. It's got an air filtration system. It's built, and so I see all these guys off, and they're working on leaking tanks, something to do with the line between tanks. And then we're whisked off and done. So that record is still on the safecast.org webpage. You have to zoom way in, but you'll see the record. If you go to the Portland area, all the logging in Portland, about 60% of it is my data logged to Safecast. It's referential data. The meter is a trusted, known detector type, and that's a record of life after Fukushima. I never found much. I never found enough that I would go out and make a story out of it, but I'm not done looking. So I've mapped some things as well. There's some data of mine out there. You can go look at it, safecast.org.
Well, we'll have to put the link in. That'll be cool. Does anybody have any questions out there for Rich? There's a lot of good stuff. People are excited. It made me excited. Poppy's with us. Kim's with us. I'd love to see. Let's see. Wait. Okay. Do you think tundra fires are radioactive? Tundra fires. Ooh. That's a good one.
It depends on the tundra. I can show you the science that fires up in the Hanford region are radioactive. I can show you some other regions where we know fires will be radioactive because of that biological half-life, biological uptake. It's like tobacco, like strontium 90, and will absorb it very quickly and well, and we still test for it in tobacco products for some reason. That's biological uptake. So that radiation stuff goes and sits up into the trees. Remember, the cesium, no matter which isotope, looks like a calcium, and it's a bone bodybuilder for the tree. So whatever it gets planted, it's in there for its half-life in that tree, and it just grows and grows, being fed the same stuff over and over again in those areas. So yes, it could be, very well could be. If it's near the Mayak site, very well could be.
Okay, you know what I want to ask about? I know we've been already, an hour and 19 minutes because I played the video in the beginning. I think to end, I would like to, again, publicize your channel a little bit so people will come and listen to you and your musings on these things, because they're short and sweet, but packed with a lot of things that make you think. to impart to our lovely audience tonight, and it's been very nice because we've had discussion in this chat, which you'll see when you watch it over. I thought was fascinating. Everybody was respectful, even though there are conflicting, opinions like this, but it worked. What would
Sure.
you like to impart on everybody that's watching us tonight?
Um, take my channel with a grain of salt. I'm going to pitch you off. I am a hard atheist, and the only reason for that is the religion in our politics today and how stupid it makes people. And apologies, but it sure makes a lot of people look dumb. And I resent it.
It's
So
okay.
that's my words of wisdom.
That's your
Vote,
words of wisdom. Well, we got a
vote,
question.
vote often.
Groot wants to know how many nuke plants are they building at this moment?
Oh, I don't know. You can go to the IAEA. They have the global records and statistics on that. And China's one of the bigger ones out there. We've got some new stuff starting. A lot of these butt weasel small modular reactor projects. Idaho's getting one. What a scam. That's another day.
Somebody had mentioned something about Idaho in here, but now Oh, no name. His channel is Boomer U. You see it right next to his name. But this has been great. I know we're really long. Thomas says man-made radiation is not the same as normal background radiation. The chat's having,
Oh,
to me, it's fascinating. Uh, Fascinating.
yeah,
What do you think we should
I
do
got
the
a long
next time?
to-do list. One of the things was to go up and look for old civil defense records because it's the only chance I know of finding radiation-free Geiger counter readings, and they're in old civil defense records stored up in Portland, or I'm sorry, up in Seattle.
Yeah.
And it's been my list of good shit to do for about 7 years. But it's a long bicycle ride up there because I'm a bicycle kind of guy. So
Yeah, I
haven't
saw
gotten
your picture.
it. So stay curious, be
Stay
safe,
curious.
wear a mask out in public,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hug a tree.
That could be another whole ball of wax. I already did something on masks. Just wear them. Let's get over this shit already. Well, this has been wonderful, and we're gonna do this again, definitely. I'll let you talk more. I blabbed a lot. I was very excitable tonight.
No, no, I need that. You have to ask questions because you need to be more specific. You can't paint this stuff with this huge paintbrush. It just is dishonest, and it's going to kill people. And I've got one grandson. I wish I knew better, but I'd like him to be able to make all the mistakes any of us can make.
Yeah, and let's hope that there is something for him to grow up to. Even though the nuclear folks would say, yeah, nuclear power because it's carbon neutral. Oh my God. Smash the like button and subscribe to me and subscribe to Boomer U if you're not subscribed. Thank you tonight. I'm really happy that it worked out because we did have a hellacious thunderstorm here right when we were supposed to go on, and I had lost my Wi-Fi, and then my computer went off, so everything was a little iffy, and my nerves are just about shot. But this is great. This has been great. Richard, I would love to have you back for a conversation, maybe with Jennifer and me one time. That would be my pleasure.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like I said, it's just kind of picking a topic because it's like a rabbit hole.
Oh, it's a
If you
rabbit
know,
hole. It's a rabbit
Alice
hole.
in Wonderland, and what they drive over them, point at them, and I don't mind dragging them down in there. Look, here's what's down in the hole. Look at this. Look, look what you just whitewashed and blew over. There's some details in here that really ought to be covered. So somewhere.
Really ought to be
All
covered.
right. I appreciate the time. I enjoy doing
Yeah.
this. I'm not
Stick
very much
around
an
while we
intimate.
end. And I'm not going to show the video again, but I did. And thank you, Poppy, for being here and calming me down. She's wonderful. She'll check out Boomer U. And I want to say peace out, all of you. I will put up the separate video. Unless you want me to play it again, it'll just make it 3 minutes longer. I'll play it again. What the heck? Good night, everybody. Thank you, Richard, so much.
Thank you all.
We will have more conversation. We will do this again. Sayonara.
Thanks again. To clean any of nuclear waste up? Why do we put so much effort into cleaning these materials up from the environment around us? It's confusing to me how no harm, nothing happens after, say, the Fukushima event. No harm, nothing happened. Divide by zero. 0 people have died according to some claims. That's all they are, is shallow, vapid claims. And then concerns about a haircut or, yeah, that's what you get. So this divide by zero causes a lot of angst and consternation. It's like sticking a word with 0 value in an equation is tough. You have to go into particle physics and quantums and other things we're still trying to understand and comprehend in this world because we don't know everything. So this is a challenge. It's an in-our-face challenge that the nuclear industry, on the one hand, says it's safe, on the other hand, spends trillions in tax dollars